It's the big show, and I'm really lucky because I get to speak to my favourite people, and a man I look forward to talking to every year is Dave Spikey. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks for asking. Are you?
Yeah, I'm delicious, and I'm here, and I'm talking to you again, and year on year, you get more and more interesting, and this year, of course, you brought out the big book, so we know everything about you.
I know, it's my life laid bare, isn't it, I suppose. I was really reluctant to do it for a long while, and then somebody persuaded me that somebody might be interested, and I got stuck into it, yeah.
I love the chapter about the affair with Michelle Pfeiffer, and there was that time with Joe Brand.
You've got to tell it all as it is, haven't you, Alex? You've got to, you can't hold anything back.
And the moment in the broom cupboard with Sue Pollard, why did you need to write about that?
I was experimenting with my sexuality. I didn't know where I was coming from.
I mean, the amazing thing about your life, it's kind of in two parts, really. There's the proper job and the real life, and then there's this showbiz thing that happened later on.
I know. It's just... and before that, when I started writing about my childhood and realised how much it influenced me, how important... I mean, I know my parents were important, but when you just start relating little incidents and you put them all together and the stuff that happened, and you unlock little memories in your head, and you think, oh, there was that time that happened, and things fall into place, and a jigsaw starts appearing. And I loved all my early days, the community in Bolton, with terraced housing and 2 up, 2 downs, outside toilets and all that, and the great community feel about it all, and going on holiday and wakes weeks and things like that. So it was all that life before. Then I got the 11 plus and went to grammar school. And that was sort of unheard of round our way. I think I was one of the first kids from our school ever to go to grammar school. And so then there was all that part of it. And then the hospital, and then the comedy. It's...
The interesting thing about your beginnings, you don't say that you had a terrible upbringing and you resent your parents and you hated life. Did your PR people forget to tell you how you're meant to write a book these days? We're meant to feel sorry for you, Dave.
Are you really? Well, that comes later, I guess, in the book. But it's funny because I showed it to my son, and he's one of my harshest critics, if you like, and he loved it. And he said, you know what, Dad, you're too hard on yourself in it. So maybe that comes later on. But I had a really happy childhood. My parents were brilliant people. My dad was a fantastic man, and painter and decorator, no job too small, own van, estimates free, and he was a self-made man who left school with no qualifications, and just he self-taught himself in the arts and literature, and that all fed down into us. So he used to take us to art galleries, and we used to go and see the Alley Orchestra if we could afford it. And I was just surrounded by all this growing up literature. He wrote short stories, he wrote poems, and he was just such a great man, and it just, at the time, it just washes over you. With 3 kids sat on the couch watching your dad, because you've no telly. So you watch your dad at night, and he puts a show. Well, no, he used to sit in my mum's big chair, and he used to get my mum's knitting needle out, and he's put the gramophone on, and he used to conduct the Berlin Symphony Orchestra with his head going, his hair flying all over the place, and those 3 kids sat there reading the Dandy going, he's a bit of a nutter, isn't he? And but they all add up, don't it? It was a wonderful childhood, and the community, and we've lost it. You seem to have lost it all, don't we?
And what about being funny and exceptional and sticking out? Do you think people walk around going, yeah, Dave Spikey's going to be a star?
No, because at school I was very, very introvert. I was very shy at school, and I write in the book about I get asked a lot about that, but there was a lad who was extrovert and was the class clown called Derek Rigby, who bless him, I had to seek him out and get his permission to write about him in the book, because he does feature heavily in my school memory, because he was one of my best mates eventually, but he was bullied, Derek, because he couldn't for all sorts. It's wrong, I know it's wrong, but we didn't bully him a lot. We just used to take his glasses off and burn his arm with the sun, that sort of thing. And he was called Derek Rigby, but he couldn't say his R's. He did a Jonathan Ross thing going on, so it was always Derek Rigby. I'm Derek Rigby, and bless him. And
that's unfortunate, isn't it? There's 2 W's in there.
2 of them, 2 R's in there. But also, when you start school, there's always a kid in your class with big ears, massive ears, big Dumbo ears, sticky out ears. There's always real sticky out ears. There's always a kid with a big nose. And there's always a kid with clinic glasses. 2 words, Derek Rigby. He had the lot, honestly. When he looked at you, he stared at you. He looked like a VW Beetle with the doors open. used to call him Herbie. And just for the icing on the cake, he had a nut allergy, when nut allergies weren't that common, really, weren't that well known, and his parents, well-intentioned, God bless them, but obviously never thought of the repercussions, made him wear a badge throughout his primary school life that just said no nuts. So the lad, The lad didn't stand a chance.
Oh, lovely.
So that's and I owe a lot to Derek in terms of like about 3 chapters in the book for a start.
Well, I hope you give him a reward for your remarks in the book.
Well done. Yeah.
It took me 4 minutes to think of that. Let's take a piece of music and then we'll come back with top man Dave Spikey. His new book's out now. We're back on your favourite local radio station talking to Dave Spikey today, one of my favourite comedians. I saw you for the first time, I don't know, 10 or 12 years ago at the Comedy Store in London. And it was just magical because, take this as a compliment because it's meant as one, you're old school but you make it modern and you're funny and the crowd love you for that. You're not trying to be a smart arse, are you?
I think you've just got to, this is my whole theory about it. I'm glad you said that. You've just got to be yourself. And if I come across as old school, it's because of my age and the way I talk maybe, because I've never done gags. I've never done, I used to, when I did the Working Men's Clubs, people used to say, what's up with him? Has he not got a mother-in-law? Does he not know an Englishman, an Irishman and a Scotsman? What pubs does he go into? There are no crocodiles in them. Because I've always done observational comedy, but maybe it's my presentation, I don't know. But yeah, they do, it does, and the accent helps. I don't know why. When I first used to go down to the Comedy Store in London, I was very conscious that my accent might alienate some people. They might not understand it, but the comment I got more than anything was, I love the northern accent. It's suited the rhythm of it, the intonation of it. It's suited to comedy, so I've always had a good time down there.
Well, and also it's the sarcasm within your material. You've got that great crux that you look to the side and you roll your eyes with a lot of your material, and the inflection in that northwest accent just suits it beautifully. And I think it is all part of the package. If I were to do your material, it probably wouldn't be funny. It's
got to be personal. You've got to find it funny, because you early on in your career, if you like, you get advice from all sorts of agents and people, television people saying, oh well, you don't do this. You should be harder edgy when you're doing this sort of material or whatever. And you say, no, you can't compromise. You've got to be true to yourself. I've always said that. And if I start doing material about, like, I don't know, let's say drugs or, inner city crime or politics or whatever, then I don't believe it and it's not me. So it won't come across as true, and people will know that straight away and they'll think, he's not being truthful about it. It's not right, that, so I've always, and this other thing, if I've seen something and found it funny, or heard something and found it funny, I'm not unique. Everybody's seen it. It's just my idea then to embellish it, if you like. That is the trick of the trade for a comedian. I mean, my wife, if say something happens in Chorley, and we go in the pub at night, and my wife Kay says, tell Paul about that, what happened, and I'll tell him and he'll laugh, that's really funny. And then Mike will come in and Paul said, tell Mike about that. By the time I've told the 10th person who's come in, this story is 5 times bigger, and they're all like, my wife's like, where did the donkey come into it? She wasn't a nun. I know, but it's funnier with a nun. And it's the art, I think, and the craft of the comedian to just look sideways at it and to just take come out of left field on some things. But other than that, I mean, you just report the truth. Sometimes you take no credit for it except for just repeating it. I think I've spoke to you before about I'm a bit of a sponge for listening, eavesdropping on other people's conversations, and I might have even told you this story, and it's as I'm getting older, I'm joining in, I'm getting really irritated with people about the lack of knowledge. I don't know, but I'll give you an example. There's 2 girls talking in Chorley on the market, and one said, she said, have you heard they found a body? I said, what do you mean a body? She said, oh, they found a body over the Chinese on Market Street. Have they? Yeah, the flat over there found a body. Oh, drugs, they think. Drugs. Really? Yeah, over the Chinese. Well, what do you expect? Yeah. She said, and get this, they reckon it was stiff rigid. She said, what? It was stiff rigid. She said, it was Cliff Richard. And I'm joining in going, yeah, it were, over a chippy on Market Street. Yeah, of course it was, you idiots.
Dave, you say you couldn't talk about drugs in your show because it wouldn't fit, but I mean, you could talk about pharmaceutical drugs. I want to know at this point when you became interesting, because you were really dull and boring for a long while, weren't you?
I was Mr. Average. I did all right at the school. I did decent at my exams, and I got into A levels. I was doing okay, and I was sort of blossoming a bit towards the end of the school life. I was a bit more into sports. I was always really good at football, and so I got picked for the second 11, which gave me a massive boost in confidence, and because I was only in the 5th form and that, and I started coming out of myself then. But it was when I went working at the hospital that I really found myself in a way. I was going to do medicine. Well, I had an ambition. Whether I'd been clever enough, I don't know. That was the ambition in 6th form. I was taking all the sciences and stuff. And then my dad, who I told you about, didn't I, before? He was and he was a pension decorator, as I say. He had an accident at work. He was painting the hands on the town hall clock in Bolton, and he fell off. Well, it was 6:30, so nothing to hold on to. And 1:15, he just stood a chance, wasn't it? 1:15, but no, my dad actually did paint the town hall clock, but he didn't fall off. But he did. he did fall off a ladder. And so I had to go to work, and so the natural thing, and well, it was an opportunistic thing really, because a job came available in the hospital labs, and I went for it and got it, despite lying at the interview, which is that's in the book as well. Never lie at interviews; they know you're lying, right?
Well, you still got the job. It didn't do that much harm,
I got the
did
job, I know, but I mean, and there was no reason to lie. The interview had gone really, really well, and I was just trying to impress this old-time consultant with the little buttonhole flower and all that, and the old senior scientist, and I just said, have I got time for this? This is funny. He said, no, that is my advice, never ever. Oh, truth is always the best policy. So he said, have you any hobbies, Davey? And I said, yes, stamp collecting. And he went, oh, philately. Yeah, probably. I don't know. And he said, oh, and I'm a very keen philatelist. And you're smiling, but in your head you're going, oh, no. Yeah. And he said, so do you specialise in any particular country? I specialise in the UK and the Commonwealth. And I said, I'm China, mainly China. And he said, and by now he knows. And he said, why China? And I went, oh, he said, that's unusual. He went, oh, is it? Well, because my uncle lives there. He said, where does he live? I went, Shanghai. Saigon. He said, that's Vietnam. I went, Shanghai then. Yeah. He said, right, what is he doing in Shanghai? Please let me off. Yeah. I said, he's an engineer. Is he? What sort of an engineer? I said, he's a marine engineer. He said, in Shanghai? And I went, all right. I don't collect stamps.
We'll be back next with our remaining moments with Dave Spikey. And we're back with our remaining moments then with Dave Spikey, and he's the comedian that everybody knows now for being funny. In the old days, he was the boy that went to the grammar school and later ended up as a pharmacist who collected stamps. Let's talk about your comedy days and the first time you went on stage. Did you actually get a laugh? Because that's all you're hoping for, isn't it, really?
It was one of those really weird things that I got involved in the hospital review society. They were quite common in those days, and you put on summer reviews and you put on winter pantomimes, and they were largely very inclusive. They were just for hospital staff. There was a lot of in-jokes about consultants and, waiting times and outpatients and stuff like that. And then I ended up writing, one of the doctors who was writing them, he left, he moved on, so I started writing them and then directing them, because if you're writing them, you want to direct them. I never had any ambition to go on stage whatsoever. And then inevitably what happens is you're directing people who can't do comedy for toffee, or trying to deliver your funny lines, and you just jumping at rehearsals on and off stage going, listen mate, no, the inflection is on, such a thing. And then eventually somebody will say, I'll tell you what mate, do it yourself, and walk off. And that's what happened to me about 2 days before our first night. And so I ended up on stage doing it, no intention to do that. And I found that I got a massive boost, real kick out of getting the laughs, as well as writing them, from hearing them backstage. And then somebody inevitably says those words, you're really funny, you should be a comedian. Yep. And you think, you know what, you're right, I'm hilarious. Why have I never realised that? And it just started from there, and I started doing talent shows and open spots, and ambition, isn't it? And it's drive and
character. This is what amazes me about you. You were prepared to drive 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours to do 10 minutes for 30 quid. Yeah. Was there ever a point when you questioned your own sanity? Because,
Absolutely.
When we see on X Factor all these idiots that think they can sing and can't but carry on, did you ever worry you were that guy?
No, because I knew I was good. That sounds really big-headed, doesn't it?
Wow.
No, but I'd done a lot of shows, and I'd been on with by that time, I'd been on with a lot of named comedians, and I knew, well, not just from myself, but my audience reaction and from what the people were saying, that you have got something to offer and you have got a talent, and that's what drives you. And it's mad because I was doing really well at the hospital. So by 1990, I was in charge of the haematology unit at the Royal Bolton Hospital. It's a massive unit, 1,000 samples a day, very, very complicated testing. And but at the same time, I'm going out at night doing my stand-up, and as you say, drive down to the Comedy Cafe in London just to do an open spot where they can't even be bothered turning up to see you, and drive back 6 hours, 3 hours. 6 in total, and phone up the next day and say, well, can I get a gig? And he went, oh, I couldn't make it last night, mate, can you come down next week? And you have to do it, and you have to just bite your lip and just do it. But why? You're right, why are you driving down? Well, why are you doing this?
Paid off though.
Well, it paid off, yeah.
Did the trick, and of course then we saw you shoot to megastardom when Peter Kay came knocking with Phoenix Nights, which you were so brilliant at. And I just watched that the other day. There was one bit where you were in a supermarket. I think it was either black bags or corned beef or something, and you'd written a song.
Yeah.
I know we've spoken in the past about Peter. He turned his back on you for a while. How's things? Are you back in communication with him, or how's it going?
No, he didn't turn his back on me. He just decided to be his own man and do his own thing. And I've not seen Peter for, I bet it's 2 years, 18 months, 2 years. We bump into each other now and again at Granada. There's always, I think, this misconception that if you work together on a great show and you have this great relationship on that show, then that carries on in real life. Whereas in fact, it's just a job. It's just you turn up and get. I mean, that was a fantastic, 2-3 years with Phoenix Nights, and before that Peter Kay thing.
The chemistry was unique, though, wasn't it? It was just brilliant.
But it was good. And three of us wrote it. Neil Fitzmaurice always often gets forgotten in all this, but he was a brilliant writer on it with us, as Ray, and he was Ray Vaughan in the series. But we started off early days. We wrote a thing called The Services with him that Peter wrote most of, and then we collaborated and co-wrote that Peter Kay thing, which I think is a fantastic series that doesn't get shown enough. And then Phoenix Nights spun out of that. So it was quite a long process. It was 4 or 5 fantastic years, you do get good mates, and you do have your arguments if you're working with anybody close at hand like that, no matter what sphere of work you're in, you have disagreements. But on the whole, it was just, one of the best times ever.
Are you still proud of it when you see it repeated wherever, or watch the DVD? I mean, it's beautifully crafted at the very least.
We worked really hard on it, and so I'm proud of that. I'm proud that we didn't, every scene that we wrote, 3 of us wrote, we never moved on until all 3 of us thought we'd wrung as much comedy or injected as much pathos or drama into it as we thought it needed. So if 2 of us went, there's that great scene there, well done, and if Neil came in and went, no, you're missing a trick, because if we're doing that, then we could get something in there, and we'd go, you know what, you're right, and we'd go back and we'd do it again. So that every time you watch it, hopefully, there's something new for you. Even if you've watched it half a dozen times, you will still find a couple of throwaway gags or signs or music on the radio at the back, something that's layered in there, Do
you want my favourite line in the whole thing? I can't get over it. It's politically incorrect, but there's a scene where he falls in love with a lady who's diminutive.
Yeah.
And somebody turns around and says, she's a kind of midget. And somebody else says, isn't that a Queen song? And it's such a little line, but God, I was laughing for days about that. Tell me you wrote that gag. That would make me so happy.
I'm going to be completely honest with you, Alex. I can't even
remember.
I can't even remember that line.
Yes.
I do not remember that line.
Oh, you can't remember that line?
Not at all.
She's a kind of midget. Oh, I just couldn't believe it. Brilliant. Listen, Dave, it's always lovely talking to you. The name of your new book is
Under the Microscope.
And it's tremendous. It gives an insight into how you make it in show business and how your life can change really from one day to the next, which it did, didn't it? I mean, literally
absolutely.
overnight. You were 1 minute you were there in the haematology unit, the next minute you're on stage with Eddie Izzard.
That's
just
right.
incredible.
Yes, mate.
Always lovely to talk to you. Come on again, won't you?
Oh, of course I will. I'll enjoy it every time, Alex. Thanks, mate.
And by the way, before we go, let's play Life by Des'ree.
Oh, this is out my stand-up.
You love this, and I love you talking about it.
I love it. I love the old facts of. You know what? It's not the way. I mean, we all know about these. I don't want to see the ghost. It's the sight that I fear most. I'd rather have a piece of toast. It's just rubbish lyrics in the world. I hate ghosts. How much? I'll tell you this. I'd rather have a piece of toast. Would you? Well, you know how I hate toast. I do. But there's other lines in it. She says, "I'm a superstitious girl. I'm the worst in the world. I never walk under ladders. I always keep a rabbit's tail." And you think, well, that's your problem, there, love. That is your problem. The rabbit's foot.
Dave Spikey, thank you for coming on.
See you later.